How does the brain work? Who are we? What is consciousness? How is our perception of the world? Of course, tremendously complex questions, much more than we're possibly even as humans capable of understanding. But imagine this. Imagine I have the brain hidden behind a towel. Would we imagine that this would change our ability to see, hear, taste, touch, or smell? Our initial instinct might be that this might affect our abilities. But when we think about it, that's what the brain is. The brain is housed in a dark box. The brain is 3 pounds housed in a dark box. It never sees daylight. It never sees objects. It doesn't hear anything. It doesn't taste anything. It doesn't smell anything, and it doesn't touch anything. But yet it is who we are, and it can see and taste and smell and touch and feel the entire outside world 24/7, 365 days a year. But how does that happen? I'm Dr. Gary Kraus, a neurosurgeon and founder of the Kraus TBI Institute in Houston, Texas. So in our video TBI podcast, we're dedicated to bringing knowledge and education to the areas of traumatic brain injury and by understanding the normal and functioning brain. When we think about it, although we say the brain is this 3 pounds of basically tissue or flesh sitting in a box, it does have inputs to the outside world. And those are through 12 nerves, which are on each side of the head, known as the cranial nerves, and the spinal cord. That's it. Those electrical impulses, just signals of electrical impulses, carry information into our brain, and from there, the massive processing of information occurs. Different portions of the brain absorb that information through signals, interact with each other, and through thousands of synapses on each nerve cell, by synapses connections on each nerve cell, we put together in our mind's eye an image of what the world is around us instantaneously, whether we're awake, whether we're asleep, beyond our imagination. How does this work? In order to understand consciousness, in order to understand who we are, it takes at least many different domains and areas of expertise and understanding, if we're even capable of understanding it. Let's go through a few. First, neurosurgery. I myself am a neurosurgeon. As a neurosurgeon, we see the brain firsthand. I've operated on countless numbers of patients, opened up the head, whether to remove a hemorrhage, take out a brain tumor, drain fluid from the brain, operate on an aneurysm, or otherwise. I cannot help but be absolutely astounded and mesmerized when I'm thinking that, what am I looking at? I'm looking at this tissue that is us, that is our memory, is our emotion, is our personality. That's first. Next, look at the domain of neuroradiology. Neuroradiology is the study of examining the body without having to open it up. Through X-rays and magnetic impulses and other sent through the brain, we can try to unravel the structures of the brain. Next, look at neurology. A neurologist studies the science of the brain, such as stroke, Alzheimer's disease, multiple sclerosis, seizures, Parkinson's disease, looking at the functioning of the brain, not in a surgical manner, but through the study of the workings of the brain and otherwise. Next, let's evaluate neuropsychology. So neuropsychologist specializes in understanding the functioning of the brain from the neurological perspective, as well as the psychological perspective. Next, psychiatry. So psychiatry is a physician who also studies the workings of the brain from the psychiatric and the cognitive approach, looking at certain diseases which impact the function of the brain and may be related to the structure of the brain as well. Psychiatry and psychology intimately study who we are, how we perceive ourselves, how we interact with others and the outside world. Next, we have the area of mathematics, big data, and computer science. Because as our knowledge of the brain is evolving, the ability to put this all together and study it critically depends on our ability to process this immense amount of data. Next, that's important, neuroanatomy. Neuroanatomy is the study of the structure of the brain. How is it hardwired together on both a microscopic level and a macroscopic level? How are all the regions of the brain connected? How do they interplay with each other? Next, the domain of physics. Physics is also critical. These are physical structures in the brain. How do they interact with each other at a microscopic and macroscopic level? How do chemical transmitters work? How do nerves fire? Action potentials. All of that has to do at a fundamental level with physics. Next, philosophy. Very important. As we leave our thinking that the brain is just a physical structure, but we get into free will and consciousness, how does philosophy enter into play? And finally, religion. Very crucial to the fundamental importance of who we are, what we are, how we interact with the outside world, and our role today and here in the universe. Now, the question is, are we capable of understanding consciousness? What is consciousness? These are questions which have intrigued man since the dawn of time. And the question is, can we even understand it? Can we understand free will, these things? Certainly, the brain may be one of the most complex machines, if we think of it that way, in the universe. And whether we're even capable of understanding it, I don't know. But I go back to a memorable experience I had when I was in 10th grade. When I was in 10th grade, in my geometry class, my teacher, Miss Selma Landsberg, talked about a world of flatlands. This was a book written a long time ago by Edwin Abbott, and it talks about a world which lives on a flat, essentially tabletop in 2 dimensions. Now, when you pass a 3-dimensional object through their world, like a ball, they can't see that. They can just see a circle expanding and contracting as a ball is passed through. The same if you pass a cube through their world. They can't see that. They can just see a square that then disappears. Now, even though we can see their world of 2 dimensions sitting on a tabletop, they can't see ours. They can't understand what happens. They can write formulas and equations that might explain a circle enlarging and contracting and disappearing after a ball passes through their world, but they can't understand it, although they can write formulas to describe what happened. Similarly, can we understand all the 3 dimensions that we're in, 3 dimensions of space and of time? In the reality, I'm not so sure we can. We can understand, I think, conceptually, something such as the XYZ dimensions of space going on forever. But we can't conceive generally of infiniteness, of infinity, that space never ends. So can we understand that there is an ending to space? Well, what's outside of nothing is more nothing. It's more space. So I think it's hard for us to understand that and conceive of that. Can we understand the dimension of time that we live in every day? I think we can conceive of time as always going on, never ending, but can we conceive that time was always there? There was never a beginning of time. I think that's hard for us to conceive of. So if in fact the three dimensions of space and one of time are to some degree inconceivable by us, is it possible there are other planes or worlds or dimensions of existence, just like there is to the two-dimensional world in Flatlands, the three-dimensional world? Dr. Lisa Randall, who's a physicist at Harvard and had gone to the same high school I attended, wrote a book called Warped Passages. In this book, she talks about brains or other essentially membranes, dimensions that other exist, and proposes there are others similar to the world of Flatlands. Now, why I bring this up, this topic, is as we're struggling since the dawn of man to understand consciousness and who we are, the question is, are we capable, any more than the world of Flatlands, capable of seeing a three-dimensional world? In addition to whether we're capable of understanding, comes the complexity of consciousness and free will. And where does this interplay? And again, it's more than we can discuss now. In a book which I've recently written, Traumatic Brain Injury and Neurosurgeon's Perspective, I discuss a little bit of this topic because we can't help separate ourselves from this important topic when we're thinking and studying the brain, who we are, normal anatomy, normal function, and what happens after an injury. And I think putting all of this into the perspective helps us to appreciate who we are, and it also helps us to appreciate the beauty of the world, the beauty of life, and whether or not we've suffered an injury, whether or not we've had an adverse event, how fortunate we are to have the brain to give us the recognition of who we are and function each day in this world. I thank many of you for sharing your stories with me about personal injuries and experiences. As a neurosurgeon, I have for many years had patients share with me their personal stories. Due to the miracle of the internet and the ability to communicate instantly with people around the world, I've also now been fortunate to learn by so many of you and so many of our people in our community. So please take this as an opportunity. Add comments below about your thoughts about any of this. It helps me to know what's on your mind. You can also interact with each other as we grow our experience and understanding. Each of you has tremendous experience and knowledge that we each can learn from and that I can learn from. And it'll help me to determine what topics to discuss in the future. If you like these types of videos, and please subscribe to the channel so you'll be notified of more. And please also hit the like button. That helps as well. And again, leave your comments. Until we see you again, stay positive, stay safe, stay optimistic, and stay dedicated. Thanks for watching.